asked a question so I can kick us off. Um, so being not in the SRE space, it's always been interesting to me to figure out how things get into production. Um, and that's not just GitLab.com, but it's also, all of our applications. So like the Omnibus installation, the cloud native GitLab, all those components. Uh, with the addition of feature flags, it's gotten a little bit more complex because you don't necessarily know if something's behind a feature flag or not. So my overall question is there a workflow that, or is it documented somewhere on ways to kind of quickly get at, is this issue in production? One thing that I have noticed is we have this workflow label that sometimes gets applied as well, in terms of whether or not something's in review or not, but it's not always proof that it's not a source of truth currently.
So I think I can start here with some of the answers, or maybe we can discuss to see if you have any other questions. I put a lot of text here in the agenda, but overall, I guess a lot of the information's in the handbook, although it, maybe could be structured a bit better. I guess Tim, do you have any? I don't want to just read what I wrote. So do you have any like follow-up questions to what I put there? Is it a bit clearer now?
Yeah, the everything that you've written down has been awesome. So I really, really appreciate
Okay,
that.
great.
I had never read through the engineering releases page. It's funny how the farther nested something is in our handbook, the more quickly I find it seemingly, and the higher up things I typically just never find. I don't know why, but that was really good. I think the only two questions that I had that I didn't write down were feature flags. Like, how do you know if something's protected behind a feature flag or not, as well as what's the process for using that label of workflow in review or workflow production. I think there's like a production label as well within that workflow.
So for feature flags, it's pretty much self-service from developers. How it works is that something is put behind a feature flag in the code, it gets deployed, and then the developer who's working the feature coordinates with the on-call in Slack to say like, okay, we want to enable this feature, and then we enable it or disable it with GitLab chat ops. And then with GitLab chat ops, you can see all the feature flags that are enabled. We also add annotations to Grafana when feature flags are turned off or on, so you can kind of see when that happens on our dashboards. But as far as like, I don't know, like we don't have a dedicated feature flag view. Like we don't have a dedicated dashboard for that shows you like all of the feature flags and what their current status is outside of ChatOps. ChatOps is primarily the primary tool that we use for that.
And is there like a label or anything? Like if I looked at the issue and said, hey, it looks like, they're making progress on this, it's in production. Is there typically a label associated with things that are going to be protected behind feature flags?
I don't think so. I don't think we have a label. I could be wrong. Maybe someone else can chime in if they know, but I don't think we have a specific label on an MR that says like, hey, this is going to be protected by a feature flag. That could be something useful. So yeah, it's worth bringing that up if you want to just like put in an issue for that and we can discuss it.
Okay.
I also noted that if chat ops looking through Slack is problematic, because I know you have a lot of lines in Slack that may interrupt the last run, there is a project repository with issues that ends up telling you when these feature flag commands were run from chat ops. And there's a link to it in the doc.
That's the feature flag log?
Correct.
And, okay. So currently there are no feature flags open?
No, it's not open as in though they're still flag set true. It's this was logged, issue closed. So it's
Gotcha.
meant more like an actual log in issue format.
Okay. So maybe this is something that, I don't know, maybe this isn't useful. I was just thinking, like, I wonder if we could relate this to the merge request that, like the feature flag issue to the merge request that's going in, but that might get noisy.
It would be nice to take the issue and have that linked up with the chat ops command, in fact, because oftentimes they're just run without context. So that's a really great suggestion. I know many of us SREs who keep a very watchful eye on the production channel see these commands being run. And a lot of folks have access to chat ops. It would be nice to wed that with, hey, here's the underlying feature functionality that's being turned on, and have a direct link rather than having
Yeah.
Well, I know it wasn't exactly your question, but I added a link as well to the change management page in engineering infrastructure section of the handbook. So that is all of the infrastructure as code, not straight up code changes and how they funnel through the staging to production pipeline, but also probably an interesting read as well.
Thank you so much.
There are actually no additional questions in the doc. Does anyone want to lob a question out live? Type while you talk.
Yeah, we talked a bit about ChatOps. ChatOps is one of those technologies that I thought everyone should be using it by now, and we haven't seen that. I think that one of the reasons is it doesn't work out of the box. So kind of everyone has to configure it, and then it's configured differently all throughout the company. I'd love for kind of the way we use ChatOps to just make that the default in GitLab, kind of ram it into GitLab. Might not work for everyone, but at least then we can dog food and there's kind of a default setup instead of everyone having to customize, because that approach it didn't work, even though ChatOps is amazing, as we said earlier. What is the chance that we can get rid of all the custom stuff we do for ChatOps and just put it in the product? Even at the cost of like, it doesn't work because we run GitLab.com and you run something else.
Just thinking about that a little bit from the point of view of feature flags, I think it would be a super interesting thing to consider, because then we could tie in with the merge requests that we were talking about earlier. So you could almost have on the merge request, a activity item, this feature flag was enabled, have the date, who it was, and that would be amazing because you could get that history. With other things like deployments, I think it might be a lot trickier, especially I think, Jav, you can probably speak to this more, but at the moment we're changing that quite rapidly as we're moving to Kubernetes. And if we had to wait for like a deployment of the application in order to kind of keep up with those changes, it would be difficult. But for feature flags, I think it'd be amazing.
That sounds great. Any other takes?
I can speak to ChatOps, and yeah, I think like the way that we use ChatOps now does require a lot of customization. We have a project with a lot of Ruby code, and then we have a CI configuration, and you have, every time you have to add a new ChatOps command, you have to edit your GitLab CI.yaml to add that command, and then you might have to write some Ruby code to do what you want to do. I would say a lot of the things that we use ChatOps for are really specific to GitLab.com. A lot of, like, for example, we query what versions are running in like the different environments, and we're doing that over the GitLab API, and it's for like kind of geared towards GitLab. So I'm not sure if other people would find that useful. I mean, maybe they would, and maybe we can come up with some things. And then a lot of times we're just triggering other project pipelines And that usually involves like some Ruby code that just triggers the GitLab API. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I would say the major, I think what would be nice for ChatOps, would be for it to be a little bit more interactive and more responsive. I would say things are really slow because you have to fire up a runner and you have to run some code and then you have to get the output. And this is something that I think would be nice if we were going to improve things. That would be nice.
That makes sense. Yeah, and regarding, I don't disagree. Like it's super customized for us right now. It won't work for other people. But for a couple of years now, we try to like have other people do stuff. And it doesn't work. So I'd rather ship something kind of that doesn't work for people than something that is empty, because the emptiness doesn't seem to, that we're pretty sure that's not working. But I agree, like the whole latency because of CI is a problem. The disadvantage is if you let people, if you do something faster, it's like hard to isolate and have like RBAC, like have access controls and have different permissions for different people. I think that's one of the most vexing problems about ChatOps. Maybe functions like Lambda functions and the stuff that's in GitLab can fix that, but I don't know. Or certain the serverless functionality in GitLab can help with that, but that's just a guess.
And also, I would say the permission model is not so nice when you have one project like we have for ChatOps, which has like a lot of Ruby code with a lot of different functions, a lot of CI jobs that do a lot of different things, and sort of the default out of the box permission model is by project. So this could be another thing that maybe we could improve.
Well, thanks. I don't have any answers, and thanks for talking about it. One thing that Drew Default sent yesterday, he runs SourceHub, as you might suspect from seeing the scores here. He emailed yesterday, and it's now on trending on Hacker News. And I think that SourceHub is a pretty minimal offering. I think this is kind of a fair comparison, but it's just different products, so I won't focus on that. But what you can see is that GitHub loads a ton faster than GitLab in most scores. And it was awesome to see, like yesterday when we saw the first thing of this, someone already merged something to improve how GitLab is doing. But anecdotally, like one of the few things holding GitLab back is like the kind of this responsiveness, the speed of GitLab.com. A couple of years ago, it was our UX UI. I think Chrissy and the rest of the team did an amazing job there. But it does, I must admit, GitLab does feel slower than GitHub. And this is kind of another data point to confirm this. Also yesterday, some people, I think you, Andrew, helped to add like our synthetic monitoring to also like query GitHub. So we have a better comparison. So thanks for that. I look forward to those site speed results. I think to fix this, there's no so-called silver bullet. Like there's lots of small things we have to fix. And I wonder what people are thinking about this.
I would like to add a bunch of other pages that we compare. And one of them actually being the GitLab repo, because I know we've got a mirror on GitHub as well, but not just the pages that we got at the moment, but also issue pages and pull requests versus merge requests and a bunch of other pages, so we can get a broader sort of idea, not just the, we started with one and that's great, but we should expand that out.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I also love the site speed that we run ourselves. I think that's a really good one. Just a summary of that. I think then the newer one will have the relevant GitHub pages as well. And I think someone added iTerm, which I think is a good like comparison, like that repo is on both GitHub and GitLab. And these are the site speed results in our monitoring. One of the tough things about like our CR function is like you need both like performance and cost and reliability, and it's like all three, and that's just super tough to get all three of them right. So I sympathize with that struggle to do all three. I'm sorry, this is an AMA and it's not really a question, but I hope, I think the question is, what do we think about making an OKR for Q2 that will take, that has us beat GitHub scores in true default measurement. I know it's external, so it's not, I'd like to use our own monitoring, but I think it's kind of fun to try to beat someone on a kind of in a public, or not someone, but another organization on a kind of public venue.
I think there's a lot of variables that we don't control when it's running on his metrics. That's my biggest concern. It's like if we don't reach it, then are we saying, well, you know, maybe he's changed the test, or, you know, the repo that he's using isn't the right one.
All right, that makes sense.
We've got it under our control.
Do we have the latest site speed that also includes the GitHub URLs by any chance?
We do that on that thread. Is Tim on the call? Yeah, I'll just put them in chat very quickly. They're there. So on the speed index, GitLab is, where was it now?
You can
1,000. Okay, yeah, let me quickly do that.
And I think you're right, Andrew. It's demotivating to do it when you don't control all of the tests. So maybe that's much better to use our own tests.
So it's just come on. So we don't have that much data, but this is so the reason we chose item 2 is they keep their source code on GitHub and they use GitLab for issues, which is quite interesting. And then they mirror the repository. So they've always got the same stuff. And it's an open source repository, gets a bit of activity. So we got a speed index of 1,503, and I think GitLab at GitHub have got an index of, oh, where's my chat gone now? They've got an index of 800.
Ooh, so almost half. Wow.
Yeah.
So exactly 860. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, GitHub is twice as fast as us. So we probably, what do people feel about making this an OKR to get this speed index to match GitHub in that regard?
So one of the things that I really like about speed index is it's not just time to first byte. It's very much about, you know, front end and your JavaScript caching and your JavaScript loading asynchronously where possible and compiling asynchronously. So it's a very kind of rounded metric because everyone needs to pull together. It's not just like an infrastructure problem or, you know, it's a whole company problem, which is one of the things that's quite nice about it as a metric.
Follow that up with a question to where that OKR would live, at what level.
Yeah, I think it should be a shared one, as Andrew said. Like, this is not just SDRs. This is this takes front end, back end, SDRs, database team, scaling team, everyone working together. So I think it needs to exist on all the necessary levels, so that it's not just one group. It should be everyone who could possibly need to contribute should have that as a part of OKR. Any other thoughts of people? Andrew, would you be so? Can you maybe have a stab at writing up that OKR, like having links to the relevant dashboards and things?
Yeah. So what I said on the thread was that I think, you know, as a quarterly OKR, it would be good to say, let's take it from, you know, double to maybe 50% more or 20, 75% more, whatever, we
Yeah.
can iterate on it.
What do you think about a 1,000 milliseconds?
Well, if we go with speed index, it's not a latency,
Oh.
it's a score. But if we take it down from whatever 1,500 to, I don't know, 1,200 or 1,100, whatever, we can decide on that in the MR. But I can take a stab at that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's do something that has a 70% odds of succeeding. I have a hard time.
Okay, we'll figure out what that is.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks for that.
I guess, Sid, to your point, and to the conversation and everything, a big part of that in this initial couple first steps is figuring out each one of the areas involved, and how kind of in an overall epic, all the different work we need to do there. And so I think even if we didn't go forward with that, there's a lot of value in understanding what all those things are, so that if we prioritize it this quarter, we know what we need to move around and how we need to move other efforts around. So that's certainly a worthy thing for us to all understand together.
Well, thanks for being open to it. And I recognize that on one hand, I'm saying this, but on the other hand, there's also pressure like, hey, GitLab.com, the cost, we got to get more efficient there. And the reliability need to stay as well as it's been recently. So that's I think a very tough part of your job to have those conflicting pressures. And it's kind of my role to prioritize, but I'm now saying I want all three, please.
4 more minutes.
Thanks, Stella. But thanks for being open to it, Stephen. Yeah, that the biggest benefit is going to be that a lot of the work is going to be finding out what needs to fix and then getting product to prioritize that. So for sure, it should be shared with product.
Yeah, I actually don't see those two objectives at odds with each other. The idea that a lot of the efficiencies that we might see, especially with back-end calls and the like, that end up in extensive loops where they may not need to, or making inefficient calls, will absolutely improve reliability, because often we find our capacity bottleneck and our saturation points, if it's not infrastructure related, it's performance related with code. So I think those couple nicely together.
Nice, thanks for that. I agree, sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's like, hey, we added CI runners, so we pick up the job earlier, but now the costs are higher and things like that. But I agree, in many cases, if you increase performance, you also reduce the risk of something falling over. So yeah, that's a good highlight. Thanks for indulging me.
All right, I don't see anything else in the docs, so I'll say thank you and adjourn us on time. Thank you, everyone.